If we talk about this comic for 4 hours, I'm just going to commit suicide at the end. This is another episode of the Flight Ringers podcast. I'm David King. That's Dan Spottswood.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
We are professional cartoonists, and we are Legion of Superheroes experts.
Ready to go? Ready to do this?
Let's do this.
Hell yeah.
Karate Kid #1, 1975.
Well, it came out December 4th of 1975, but it has a March-April of 76 cover date. And we're looking at the story is called My World Begins Yesterday. This is the first Legionnaire solo series, right?
I think so.
It's written by Paul Levitz, and I think this is Paul Levitz's first Legion-related writing gig.
I think that's true, too.
Yes. We have...
I think I read that he was like 19 when he wrote this.
Was he that young? Wow.
Yeah,
I think
like
he had an editing credit for Treasury that came out.
That could be. I think he was an assistant editor trying to break into writing, and he kind of got fired or got taken off of this because somebody thought he wasn't ready.
It's penciled by Rick Estrada, and he's kind of an interesting guy, Cuban-American cartoonist. He's kind of mainly known for romance and war comics. He even did some stuff for EC in the 50s. That would have been like Two-Fisted Tales or a couple war-related comics. He did stints on the Buck Rogers newspaper strip on and off in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
He did. I have a really good-looking Flash Gordon comic book that he did in early 60s probably. Like, it doesn't quite look like the 70s style, but you can still see him in there. It looks really good.
So it's an actual, like it was intended as a comic book. It isn't like reformatted newspaper strips.
No, it's an original comic. Like, they did a handful of issues, and they're kind of alternating with like maybe Al Williamson and another artist who I'm drawing a blank on.
A couple little interesting things about this guy, since we've never really talked too much about him. Ernest Hemingway was a friend of his family and helped get him citizenship, or helped get through some red tape for him to come over here. And also, he was a Mormon, and I've seen him referred to as the father of Mormon comics. I like, are there that many more Mormon comics? But he
him
did
and
do some
Mike Allred, right? That's
right.
the only Mormon comics I know of.
Right. But he did do some biblical adaptations, I think, later in his career.
There's something in some of those 70s war comics called the Mormon Battalion.
Right. I squeezed it in, I guess.
I probably read them, but I can't really remember what the premise would be.
Anyway, moving along, we have Joe Staton, however you pronounce it, inking it. This might be his first DC thing. He's just come over. He's probably been at Charlton up until now. He becomes a staple of DC the next 10, 20 years. Then we have Joe Orlando editing.
Yeah, something I read said that, it pointed out this kind of age difference between... that pointed out how Rick Estrada was working since the 50s, the early 50s, and Staton's is kind of this brand new guy on the scene.
Right.
But they're they're a pretty good compliment. I don't love the way this looks. I like Estrada solo artwork way better, but yeah, Staton kind of grows into it and looks pretty good as time goes on.
Later in the series, as they work together, their styles start to click a little better.
Yeah,
I think
Staton's real cartoony.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Did some good Green Lantern stuff in the 80s. Designed a lot of the more iconic aliens in that book, like Kilowog and Astra and Salik, I think his name is, like the four-armed purple guy.
A Chip.
I mean, they'd been making aliens for years in that, but only maybe Tomar Ray stuck. Everyone else is kind of forgettable until Staton came along. He made some like memorable, iconic characters that they've kept around.
Yeah, Kilowog's huge.
Comes big in Justice League. He was a big part of Justice League. Like after...
Oh, was he?
You don't remember that?
Not really.
During the Giffen days, like they'd gotten rid of the Green Lantern Corps, so he wasn't a Green Lantern anymore.
Oh, yeah, he was like their mechanic or something, wasn't he?
Right, he was always wearing like overalls. He's like their repairman.
Yeah, I remember that now.
It was maybe more Justice League Europe, maybe.
Yeah, that could be. That's probably
I don't remember for sure which team he was on, but he was involved in quite a few
Well, they had him on the Green Lantern cartoon, I think, like the CG cartoon, and then that movie. He was big in the movie.
For sure. I wonder if he gets any royalties.
I hope so. I hope all these guys are getting rich.
Getting something.
Cover by Mike Grell.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I read something where they were talking to Carl Gafford, who's the color guy. And I guess originally this cover had a black background where all this red is. And he decided to turn it red. Very interesting story. Like, you can find the original artwork online. It looks kind of cool, all black in the background, but I can also see how it wouldn't really work.
With his pants.
Yeah.
Do you like the logo? I can never decide. When I was a kid, I thought it was boring. I thought it made it look like a Chinese restaurant logo.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about this kind of whatever. It's like quote unquote Oriental style or something. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like, maybe you shouldn't do that. But yeah, it's still in the fucking fortune cookie wrappers and stuff. Text that looks like this.
Like, maybe it's not even real, like Asian letters. Like, it's just made to look like what we think Asian letters are.
I mean, obviously, it's not Chinese or Japanese,
right?
You know,
right? Of course.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. I don't love it. It's fine. They changed the logo later in the series. I think maybe I like this better than the newer logo.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah, the new one kind of looks like a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah, it makes me think of like a Thor comic or something. The later one. Of course, the guys he's fighting on the cover at least are yellow.
Oh yeah, they kind of look tan, I guess.
Not as yellow as they would have been 10, 15 years earlier, thankfully. Yeah, there's not a lot going on. There's 2 or 3 pages that have a ton going on, and then there are like groups of pages, 2, 3, 4 pages that one sentence will sum up. The very first page, it looks like Joe Staton to me. Like Nemesis Kid in particular, that looks like a Joe Staton character.
Could be. I don't know. But it has a silly stars and stuff, that's more of a Rick Estrada type of touch.
Right.
It has this kind of cartoony stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're dropped into the middle of the story. Karate Kid's fighting his old nemesis Kid. Of course, they both were created by Jim Shooter and premiered in the same issue of Adventure Comics 346, I think. So it's kind of a natural pairing, which will pretty much continue for the rest of Karate Kid's career. Will end his career, right?
Yeah, but I don't think it continues through this series at all.
Oh, like he doesn't show up again?
He mops up Nemesis Kid in this issue to spoil the ending. And then he doesn't come back again. So
yeah, it's a weird choice.
It's not like a blood rivalry between these two guys, you know? It's like sometimes he fights him, and then most of the time he doesn't fight him, you know?
He does sort of end up his big bad, maybe not in this series, but of course Nemesis Kid is the guy who kills him.
No, I mean, it's logical. It's good, you know, like in that first appearance or the first couple appearances, doesn't Nemesis Kid try to frame Karate Kid as a traitor?
Yep.
And that would piss me off too and make me want to fight you every time I saw you, you son of a bitch, you know?
Right.
But yeah, more often than not, I mean, Nemesis Kid doesn't seem like he's like Dr. Regulus or somebody, you know, who at the drop of a hat, he's showing up to fight Sunboy.
Right. Maybe it starts happening more frequently as time goes on, but the pairing, like they clearly thought to use him as the guy to have the final battle with Karate Kid.
I mean, he's a pretty powerful villain, right? Whatever his power is.
Well, yeah, it's sort of nebulous, but it complements a character like Karate Kid really well because you can just counter every move like you could karate fight him.
Is that the way it works? Like he has...
Well, he seems to like gain whatever ability he needs to, like if he fought Superboy, I imagine he would become like kryptonite.
Yeah, it's not well defined, but yeah, like I guess I thought he would. I'm kind of imagining him as Duplicate Boy, whose power is to just have the same powers as anybody he encounters. But it's not quite the same, is it? It's like
no,
Nemesis Kid has or knows the weakness of his opponent
right.
without having to do anything, I guess.
Which they should have used more. I mean, that's a very interesting take on a villain. Like he could turn into lead when he's fighting Mon-El.
Yeah, it kind of seems like that's the kind of stuff that Paul Levitz is always saying, like, oh, it's too hard to understand what that power is and how to use it, so I would never
Right.
use him. And that might explain it, because kind of after this comic, within a couple of years, Paul Levitz writes Legion forever
Right.
and never uses Nemesis Kid until that
Right.
Legion of Supervillains thing.
The only silly thing about him, in my mind anyway, I think Jim Shooter was a genius even at 14 or whenever he introduced those 4 characters. It is a little silly that you're supposed to wonder which one of the 4 is the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out to be the one named Nemesis Kid. Like, you should have just called him Bad Guy Kid.
Right,
or
yeah.
Evil Kid. Right.
Nasty Boy. Like, who's the
Right,
traitor?
right.
Nasty Boy. This the splash page thing was something they did throughout the series, where they have a sort of a double page thing, panel or a strip of panels across the top, and then a horizontal splash page across the bottom.
Yeah, it works really good, I think, because it kind of widens the view on the big panel.
Yeah, but you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if this is part of why they don't have it on the DC Universe digital comics thing, because it reads it by page. And like, I was looking at the bootleg website, and I read this panel and this panel, and then I read this stuff, and then I was confused.
Maybe a bit of a formatting nightmare, I guess. So we have the Legionnaires show up somewhat arbitrarily, but mainly it's because this is a new series with an unknown character. We got to have the Legionnaires make a big, exciting appearance, even though they're only going to be there for a page.
3 pages.
Okay, 3 pages. I will say, I think Levitz has some pretty good, like, little quips throughout this book, little insults.
This is like the funniest Levitz comic ever.
Maybe. It's pretty fun seeing Karate Kid make fun of Brainiac 5 and the other guys. Though I don't know if I agree with the way he writes Karate Kid throughout this book. It's very strange. Like, out of the blue, he's a very angsty, petulant character, which I don't think we see much of before this or after, probably.
Yeah, but what is his personality? He's just kind of easygoing. Like, he doesn't have like a stupid stereotype mystical or like hippie type of personality, right? Or like, I don't know, he's not like Kung Fu from the show, or he's soft spoken and stuff.
Right. He's not a wise Asian stereotype.
Yeah, but what is he? He's just a regular kid, I guess. I can't remember his personality. Maybe it's because I haven't really read any of that stuff too recently. I don't know what his personality was in the adventure days.
Well, I mean, honestly, they all kind of had the same personality.
Yeah.
In the early days.
So maybe at this point, they're just giving him a personality.
But, I mean, and some of it is probably just conjured in my own imagination over reading it over the years. But I guess I think of him as an optimistic character, like a very, you can do anything you set your mind to kind of guy. Like, he is not daunted by the possibility of having to fight Superboy. Like, he's like, I could still maybe win. I could maybe date that princess.
Yeah, so in this one, you're saying he's more hot-headed and petulant. You said the word petulant, didn't you?
Right. Well, yeah, like a whiny teenager. The Legion comes back to save his ass, and he's like, you ruined it. I just about had him.
They cut into his fight with Nemesis Kid, and then Nemesis Kid escapes. I don't know how you stop Nemesis Kid.
I don't know, but that is part of what would make him a great villain, I think. I'm of the school of thought that the villain should always be overwhelmingly overpowering the hero. Like, there doesn't seem like there's any possibility that they can beat him. They've got to really be clever to somehow beat the odds.
It's sort of an idealistic way of looking at it. Like, from a writer's standpoint, it would just be too hard. I wouldn't want to do that.
I guess that's true.
Nemesis Kid's power that he uses here, or the way he uses his power when the Legionnaires show up, is to disappear.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
They appear, so his counter is that he disappears.
I guess that makes sense, what you're saying.
It's stupid.
That was definitely a page where I was thinking he could have thought of something more clever, like grabbed one of the members that come back, like whatever would counter their power would be perfect for him to escape. Some countering power that would allow him to escape. I don't know what it would be.
It's too hard. It's just not nailed down enough what he's actually doing and where the power comes from. And, You know, like how does he use his power? I have no idea. Like in this first page of this, he has a shield.
Right.
So I guess anybody comes at him, he has a shield. Well, that's a good counter to somebody's power.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't think it's purely a replicating power, but it would give him whatever he would need to be able to beat a guy. So it wouldn't just be like, if he's fighting Karate Kid, he'd just be as powerful as Mon-El, so he could just zap him with his vision. It would be like he would have karate skills good enough to counter Karate Kid's powers. Like, in a way, like the more powerful a hero he's up against, the more powerful he would become. But if he's just fighting Karate Kid, it would be like he'd gain powerful hand-to-hand combat powers. He wouldn't become like a Daxamite or something.
Right. And you think that's how he was used in the past, or how his powers were displayed previous to this?
I believe so. And I think that's what's happening in his final battle with Karate Kid. But
I don't know. This comic definitely doesn't explain it, though, right?
No, not too well. Though they do go a long way. It's interesting that you're right. He doesn't reoccur, but they do seem to go, and this is probably because Levitz only wrote the first issue. Maybe he had different plans, but they do seem to sort of establish him like maybe he's going to be an ongoing threat. Like he's going to be the big villain because he, as we'll see, has established like a crime ring, and he's using his knowledge of future technology to become a rich like weapons manufacturer.
Yeah, he has a whole headquarters and stuff, right?
Right.
With like a sub basement,
right?
Kind of shit.
Oh, we gotta go back one. We're missing the fun. We're missing.
Oh yeah, where is it?
Lightning Lad trying to be the voice of reason, and petulant Karate Kid countering him by kicking him in the chin.
Yeah, it looks silly. Like he's lifting up Brainiac 5, like he's got his hands under Brainiac 5's armpits, and he's holding him up and yelling at him. And then this page, or this panel here, where Lightning Lad shows up, like he drops Brainiac 5, gets zapped, doesn't work, and he comes up and kicks him in the face.
Little bit of an overreaction. Yeah, I love it. Though it makes you wonder, like, how much did Levitz know where the Legion lore was at this time? There was a period early on where it was sort of ambiguous whether he was an alien organic boy or if he was possibly a robot, because Brainiac turned out to be a robot.
Oh.
And the way he's talking about him, he says, "Why you short-circuited excuse for an adding machine?"
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I guess I don't feel like they ever leaned in too hard to the idea that Brainiac 5 might be a robot, but there's a lot of comics.
Well, I mean, they did pretty frequently talk about him having a computer brain, but it was sort of like for a while. I don't think they knew exactly how to fix that or settle that, because I think when they first established Brainiac 5, they hadn't yet revealed over in Superman that Brainiac was a robot.
Mm-hmm.
So then when they did, they had a problem. They had a continuity problem. It took a while for them to figure out like, how could he be the descendant? Is he a robot himself, or is, and there's been a few convoluted explanations over the years as to how they are connected. But
yeah, that's another episode of this.
Right. We could dedicate an entire episode to that. Perhaps we will.
On this page, though, they while he's telling off Brainiac 5, he refers back to the last time they captured Nemesis Kid. And I think all this stuff where he's like, he was in jail, but nobody knew that he did some smoke and mirrors bullshit and escaped, but made us think he was still there. Like, that didn't happen in any comic. It just happened here.
No, that happened off panel. I went back and looked at Superboy 208.
Yeah, 208 has the Legion of Supervillains in it.
Right.
But there are different Legion of Supervillains. Like, I guess an early iteration of the Legion of Supervillains that I remember including Lightning Lord, Cosmic King, and Saturn Woman. Those guys came later in the adult Legion era with Superman, right?
That's where those guys first appeared. I think that adult version may have fought the Legion in an issue or two in the 60s, but this is like a contemporary version of them. They're younger.
Right.
And Lightning Lord is there, but this is young Lightning Lord now. Right.
What I noticed is that they showed a little lineup of the Legion of Supervillains, like they're sitting there in their chairs,
Mhm.
and they all have red, white, and green or green costumes. Like Nemesis Kid is all green, Lightning Lord is red and white and green, and then there's like this what is it? Spider Girl is maybe one of them, and she's kind of red and green. They just kind of look like Christmas tree decorations.
Christmas themed villains.
Plus, the coloring in that was kind of heavily skewed towards whatever the cyan plate was kind of weak on the printing in mine or something.
Yeah.
So they looked really green and red.
While we're flashing back to his time in prison, we see outside of that memory bubble, a very kind of cartoony depiction of Karate Kid getting his butt zapped, I guess.
Yeah, Rick Estrada does cartoony stuff. Like he's a
Yes.
cartoonist. He's not like a superhero illustrator. And I think that's probably what maybe turned me off of him when I first saw him way back. And I'm like, this is kind of... But I love it now. I love looking at his comics.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because that's how I felt about Staton.
Yeah.
And I think I like it more now than I did at the time. I'm like, this isn't Jim Lee.
Yeah. Jim Lee would never have sparks coming out or stars coming out of somebody's head when they get punched.
Right.
And then, now he's taken on Mon-El on this page and does this silly thing where Mon-El holds up his hand and Karate Kid punches his hand.
Yes.
And it doesn't crush Karate Kid's hand like it ought to.
Mon-El's maybe pulling back a little or something to avoid breaking his hand.
It's kind of funny, though. Mon-El's like, I'm the leader. And Karate Kid's like, I was a leader once, too. Don't pull that shit on me. The superiority trip.
He's very angsty about being the only guy without powers here. And I feel like that's very much the opposite of the way he was depicted when he first showed up. Like, he didn't seem to think there was any problem with that at all. Like, I'll fight Superboy. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, he was secure in the fact that he was as good as the other heroes, even though he wasn't born with Kryptonian strength or et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it's right. It's very clear on this page, too. It's a little bit over the top melodramatic. Yeah. Where he's like, I learned my art and developed my powers. You can't understand that. And Mon-El, I can't understand you, Dad.
It's over the top enough that I wouldn't think they'd want him back. Like, they're like, well, when he comes back, we need to put him into observation. He's got some severe emotional problems here. He's attacking teammates, stealing a time machine, going back in time, not telling us where he is, refusing to return to our timeline.
Yeah, he's just going through some shit,
Right. He's crazy. He's acting irrational. He's attacking us. Let's leave him in the past where he could, like, fuck everything up. Fuck up our future.
Yeah, they're like, forget it. Let's go home. He can come back when he's ready.
Right.
Just stay here in the 70s where you don't belong.
Right. Run around flying through town with your flight ring. Don't change history.
He throws away his flight ring.
Well, it breaks.
Yeah, that's dumb, too. Paul Levitz should know he can't break those.
Well, no, I mean, it makes sense. Like, you want to, like, get rid of his easy outs, like his time bubble also, like anything that could remove the drama from the story so he could just go get his buddies to come help him.
I guess so. I mean, it's fine. You could say that he's so prideful about the powers, the martial arts powers that he developed and learned, that he wouldn't ever rely on the flight ring, but wouldn't have to throw it away. Like, he might also be proud of being a member of the team and keep his class ring on him. But I guess that's not as dramatic as just throwing it in the trash or...
Yeah, but the problem with narratives like that, though, is there's inevitably some scene where when you look at it, you're like, he could have saved that person, but he chose not to use his ring, because of his honor or something. And then we're introduced to these kind of Keystone Cop cartoony guys.
Oh, yeah. One cop's dumb. He's the boss cop, and the other cop is, I guess, average intelligence or something like that.
I think these guys are in later issues. I think they're building like a little supporting cast for him here. Yeah,
it would kind of make sense and they're good characters, like this dumb shit police officer.
Bert and Ernie. It's Wonderful Life.
They think Karate Kid's a movie.
His ring malfunctions when he's leaving, and he flies through the window of a woman who becomes like a regular kind of a love interest character for this book, unrequited.
It's kind of weird in this one where like a regular Legion reader would know that Karate Kid and Princess Projectra are an item and have been for a long time.
Right.
They don't even say Princess Projectra's name in this comic.
Right.
And it's not like Karate Kid's trying to put the moves on this girl right when he meets her or anything like that, or ever in the whole series. But yeah, he's like done with 30th Century by the end of this issue, even though he has a very serious relationship happening back in the future.
I don't know. Was it that serious yet? It's still kind of early. Maybe it's early enough that he's not engaged to her.
Yeah, but like eventually later in this series, the whole premise of the series is that he's back in the past trying to prove his worthiness of her hand in marriage.
I forgot that they came up with a reason for all of this later.
Yeah. At first in this, by the end, he's like, I'm going to stay here in the 70s because it's real and I'm going to find myself.
And it's clear that this is written in a very different time, because revealed on the next page that the strange man fell through the window of a school and she's a teacher. Oh, no big deal. Just stranger just jumped in the window. Elementary school. There's no lockdown, no security.
Yeah, she starts showing him around.
Right. Show him where all the emergency exits are.
Well, and she's not even... Like, she's a teacher, but she's not working. She has time to, like, stop and chat with this stranger, show him all the kids, get the kids' addresses for him. It sounds like she's working at some kind of, like, this school has a specific philosophy that she tells them. She says, it's rather quiet for a school, but we try to keep our students working and thinking instead of talking. Like, it's a disciplinary and type of school, no talking.
And while he's thinking, like, you think that's bad in my century, they just like load all the information into people. And he's describing this future less utopian than it's usually depicted. Like, it sounds like a very, I don't know, like Orwellian, sort of less idealistic future, or at least his interpretation of it. Yeah, but like he says, capable of feeding a child facts, but never creating love of learning.
It still sounds like a good way to teach people. To give you information as a student or something, you know? Like,
sometimes. Depends on how you do it,
I guess.
Right.
Kids don't love learning anyway, do they? Yeah, I mean, you're right. He does have sort of a different take on the weird psycho education that they usually have, which it sounds good to me. Like, I sit in a chair for 3 hours and it just pumps information into my brain, so I don't have to take a test.
I don't know. It sounds a little scary to me.
Don't have to do homework.
Yeah. Seems like an easy way to maybe indoctrinate you.
Well, yeah. Into a citizen of utopia. Come on.
Yeah. Sounds like mind control. I don't know. Yeah, I'd probably opt for it too, just out of laziness. Even if I was suspicious of it.
You're such a libertarian.
Ugh, and that was below the belt. Jeez. I guess I wouldn't mind if it was a public school.
Yeah. Yeah, right under the government. What's the difference between the public school?
But if it's like a
20th century?
parochial school, it could get rough.
School sucks, one way or the other.
He's looking for the roof where he's left his time bubble. And they get up there and he realizes Nemesis Kid has stolen it. It's been jacked.
Yeah, how does he know Nemesis Kid stole it? Just because he left this little green box of cigarettes or whatever it is?
Yeah, really, they should have cut to like some old homeless guy like traveling through time with his buddy in it, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off or something.
Yeah, or like the kids from that school who sneaked out to the roof and took it.
Right. Yeah, but he's deliberately left some means for Karate Kid to find him. Like, Karate Kid's like, I'm pretty sure this is a trap, but I'm just going to do it anyway. But he has to take the subway.
A little bit of humor where she gives him a bus token because there's no such thing as air cars.
Right.
And then he's just riding the bus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised he learned so quickly how to ride the bus.
I know. They're missing, like, great moments, too. Like, on the bus, you would think you'd have, like, the box scene on the bus.
Yeah, totally. Well, and he doesn't speak English, you know?
Oh, yeah. You think he's speaking Interlac?
I guess so. I mean, I don't imagine that. I don't think they had Interlac yet, but you know, like the English, even if he spoke the English of 1,000 years from now, it'll be like if I went back to Shakespeare days and I'm trying to communicate with somebody in English, it wouldn't be the same. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Realistically, he wouldn't be able to communicate with people. He wouldn't have any idea how the fuck you're supposed to do this, whatever social stuff you have to do to get a ride on the bus and know which bus number to take. I suppose Iris told him all of that stuff. I don't know.
I just don't know how far a guy who kicks someone in the chin who tries to get him to listen to reason is going to get. Like, he's probably getting into physical altercations with everybody who says, "Excuse me."
Yeah, like that's an insult in the 30th century, right?
Right. So anyway, he looks out the window and happens to see some gangster-looking fellow mobster-looking fellow who has a high-tech future rifle.
What is with this guy? Like, he looks like Michael Jackson in the Smooth Criminal video, but he has this giant, like, blaster gun from Apocalypse or something that he's walking around with.
Mm-hmm.
How come everybody isn't staring at this clown?
So he's sure that has to be Nemesis Kid. So what does he do? He leaps out, he breaks the window, you attack this guy.
Like, I thought I might turn the page and it's going to be some kind of gag where like everybody in the 20th century or in the 70s walks around with a stupid gun like this and he's just hassling somebody. I thought that might be something they do, but it's not.
Right. It's some sort of like garden tool that he is mistaken for like some sort of destructo ray. Looks like a weed eater in the future.
Yeah, it would have been a good gag.
Yes.
That's not what they went for. This guy actually is a bad guy. Luckily, he turns out to be a bad guy because Karate Kid has decided to kick this guy's ass.
Right. At first, though, it's just that I don't know that it's clear that is it clear that he's a bad guy?
No, not really.
We know he whipped his ass, and then we see he looks at the gun and realizes Nemesis Kid must have made it, and this is where he's hiding out, or this is his base of operations. Is Future Tech Incorporated. But then they sort of amend that, I think, on the next page because he says something like he has followed the guy he just knocked out to Future Tech.
I don't know. His detector is leading him on the bus to this place, but then he sees the guy with the gun and recognizes it as a 30th century gun. Mm-hmm. I guess that's what tips him off. I don't know why Nemesis Kid is producing 30th century guns. I guess he's an arms dealer. Is that the idea?
Well, then he says, since my ray blasting friend just ran here, so now this guy who seemed like maybe he wasn't really directly related to Nemesis Kid, just owned one of these weapons he's produced, is one of those guys.
Yeah.
So he has three, not one, not two, three reasons for coming here. One, he's got his Nemesis Kid detector. Two, he knows the name of this place. And three, he just followed that guy that he knocked out in the page before.
All right, I'm up to speed now.
Yes. What do you think?
Wait a minute. He's like, he beats up the guy. And then he's looking at the gun, I guess. And the gun has a label. The gun has a label that says Future Tech.
That's what I said. That's one of the three reasons. On the next page, he gives three explanations to why he's there. That first panel.
I was looking at the two panels on page 10 where he's knocked out the guy. He's looking at the gun. He's looking at the tag on the gun that says Future Tech.
That's how he knows where to go.
Future Tech must be Nemesis Kid's new alias. But then in the last panel, the guy he beat up is running towards the Future Tech building.
Oh, yeah, he is there running.
Yeah, but he seems like he's done in the panel just before, like he's laying on the ground.
Right.
But somehow, while Karate Kid is reading these two words on the gun, the bad guy gets up and he runs, I don't know, the rest of the way towards this building, and he's practically at the door. It seems
totally unnecessary. Like, all you needed was he's looking at the gun. Next thing you know, he's at the manufacturer's building, right? But maybe they were like, well, wait a minute. If we just have that explanation, that means this guy could have been a law-abiding citizen who bought this gun that he just beat up for no reason. So we have to somehow make him a henchman to justify Karate Kid beating him up, I guess.
I guess so. I mean, I don't think that there's any way that a law-abiding citizen has a rifle that's designed only for killing people. Like,
Yeah.
what law-abiding citizen
No.
would have a weapon like that?
Totally unrealistic. Well, he uses it to shoot wild boar. He needed to kill wild boar.
All right.
That's why they need those AR-15s, It's a big wild boar problem.
Are people hunting wild boar?
There's certain wild animal that are pests that like wild boar that only an AR can take down.
All right. But people have been killing wild boar forever. They used to have to set a trap or something, right? Now you just can get a man killer gun. I mean, a boar killer gun. Sorry.
That's right.
Well, I'll believe it when I see it.
Mhm.
I'll believe it when they pry that belief from my cold, dead hands. Yeah, he's still looking at the chronal energy reading that's leading him to the Nemesis Kid. He says something about the legendary paranoia of the 20th century.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's referring to. The doors being locked?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that what he's talking about?
I guess in the 30th century, everybody leaves the doors unlocked because there's no crime, maybe.
Could be.
But yeah, the fact that he points out legendary paranoia, I don't know what they're talking about. Must have just been some shit in the 70s, some crime wave stuff that was happening in the 70s. He breaks in and look at these guys who are going to attack him inside of the Future Tech building. There's like, I don't know, these are all like the bad guys from the Bruce Lee movie, I guess. Like there's a sumo wrestler looking guy and a guy with, they have devil horns? I don't know. They all have samurai swords. One guy has nunchucks. But he says, nobody but a charter member of the Legion of Supervillains could hire a bunch of goons this ugly. Legion of Supervillains never hired goons. They were the goons.
Mm-hmm.
He kicks their asses.
This is what I was talking about before. Like they almost made him a Kingpin-like character in here. Like he's dug in here. He got here a year before Karate Kid, and he's had all this time to amass this empire here. So he has huge building. He's presumably rich as fuck from selling all these weapons, and he's got henchmen. It seems like he's being set up to be a reoccurring character.
When you put it that way, though, it makes me wonder how Karate Kid connected to him on the first page. Like it's this one-to-one battle that's happening right at the beginning of the story. And it's as if Karate Kid went back in time to the 70s and he just like landed right on top of Nemesis Kid and they started fighting. And only afterwards did he learn that Nemesis Kid has his whole empire.
Yeah, it does seem that way. There's also, like at this time travel is not written very cleverly, maybe because the writers don't want to be too confusing, but there's that strange thing like he could show up at any time in the past. So you're thinking maybe Nemesis Kid just decided to go back a year earlier. Well, that doesn't make sense either. Like, why did he show up a year later? But it's because he's been missing a year in the future. That is why. It's like there's only one past you can go to, and it's running concurrent with the future. So, like, if you missed Superboy's birthday, if you go a day late, then you're going to show up the day after his birthday. You can't, like, just go back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like Nemesis Kid, he disappeared a year ago from jail at Legion headquarters.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that he's been in the 70s for a year. He could have been in the 70s for 20 years. He could have gone and he could have landed back in 1956.
Right.
And now it's 1976.
Or he could have escaped just yesterday in the future.
Yeah.
And have that 1 year. But he landed 1 year before Karate Kid did.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, the Karate Kid's acting as if he's had a whole year to prepare for this, but he's actually could have had a whole infinity to prepare for this.
Right.
But he's very well prepared one way or the other.
And that kind of weird limitation on time travel is pretty common in early superhero comics involving time travel. And I don't think it's because guys like Edmund Hamilton weren't smart enough to do that. I think there must have been some editorial dictate or something like that's going to be too complicated for kids.
But I was trying to say, how did Karate Kid get the drop on Nemesis Kid at the very beginning of the story? How did that happen? Mm-hmm. That he didn't have to run the gauntlet of a bunch of thugs and goons. In fact, he didn't even know that there was thugs and goons. He was about to defeat Nemesis Kid like that, but he was interrupted by the fucking interloper Legionnaires ruining his mojo or whatever.
Yeah.
Harshing his mellow. It doesn't matter, I guess.
There's no logical explanation. Like, there's no logical reason for Nemesis Kid, who's presumably trying to amass power and wealth in this time, to be walking around in his green costume 1 year after he got there. Like,
so fucking stupid. pissing me off.
This page, which I like this page a lot, but it feels like it's an ad, like a one-page ad for Karate Kid, because it's showing off all the things you can do, and then at the very last panel is Val Armour, the Karate Kid, in the big
Yeah,
letters.
that's cool. I do like it. I wish it was spread out over 2 pages or something. Like it shows him doing a bunch of fighting, but like I want to see fighting. I don't want 9 different poses of fighting. I want 9 pages of fighting. Like, like some of these pages of talking and shit. I don't know.
Right.
Should have condensed this stuff into small panels and put this into some big panels.
Well, I think this page would be perfect, this 9-panel page, if Paul Levitz wasn't writing all over it. Like, it doesn't need any of this dialogue explaining what's going on. You just show him kicking the crap out of these guys.
Yeah, I mean the playing devil's advocate here, the dialogue is sort of explaining how much better a Karate Kid is than everybody else. And I suppose if we've been reading Legion of Superheroes, we would know how much better than everyone else he is already. But for a first issue, maybe. But it says he's the complete fighting machine in human form, a true champion of combat. The guys at work call me that.
Yes, I'm sure they do.
His moves show the blood of the great black dragon in his veins. Yeah, there's backstory in here. Black dragon, sensei, true champion of combat. It's good. I just wish I wish the fighting was bigger instead of like all these little tiny boxes of fighting.
Yeah.
But on the next page, he climbs an elevator shaft. So exciting.
Right. It doesn't really further the story. Like, you could lose this page and everything would make sense.
Yeah, but his sock gets torn open.
Right.
So
he hurts his toes.
It's a pretty important plot point there where they mess up his toe.
Though the drawings are nice on this page. The faces are good.
Yeah, these faces have a lot of Joe Staton in them and a lot less of Estrada. Estrada faces are good, and he draws intense faces.
Yeah, there's a couple pages throughout the book where he looks the way I think of Estrada's Karate Kid, but he hasn't quite settled on a definitive look for him. But by the later phase, he almost looks like a character model from an animation thing. Like, he has a very distinct look that is consistent in every single panel that he doesn't quite have yet.
There was his hair in one of these, like when he's talking to Iris at the school. It's really huge and messy. And then on this panel, he's kind of looking a little bit more like Jim James kind of design or something.
Then on the next page, he looks like Bruce Lee or something in that close-up.
And this page, he looks like fucking Davy Jones, or this panel rather. Real weird.
Yeah, but he ultimately settles for I don't know if it's manga-ish, but he has a very simple, lineless, cartoony, round face with like an upturned nose, very distinct, like solid teeth. They're like just one big piece, and his eyes are sort of cat-like curved. I guess they're supposed to sort of suggest Asian eyes.
And I guess maybe Estrada is doing tighter pencils or something as time goes on to get that consistent look, because what you just described sounds exactly like a Rick Estrada drawing and not like a Estrada layout embellished by somebody else. It sounds
right.
But anyway, he fights the elevator shaft and wins, and breaks into Nemesis Kid's big computer room, where the he's got the stolen time bubble.
That's right.
Oh, and here's Nemesis Kid is using his powers. What's he do? He turns into steel?
Right. A second-rate Ferro-Lad impersonation.
Second-rate because it's a weaker metal than iron.
I was trying to figure out, like, it's drawn as though he has superhuman strength and he's ripping the metal floor out from under him and just making a joke about pulling the rug out from under him. But it doesn't really make sense for him to be able to lift anything more than a rug.
Right.
But why would there be a rug in this high-tech headquarters?
It keeps the room warm or whatever.
Okay.
It's quiet.
The neighbors complain about him walking around up there when he's plotting his world domination.
Exactly. Like he rents out the floor beneath it to an office.
Right.
And they're like, what the fuck? Nemesis Kid calls Karate Kid an imbecilic half-breed.
Has that been established yet?
It must be. I mean, he's half Earthling and half something else.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Of course. But if he's alluding to his mixed heritage, I mean, I don't know if Grell, that was during the Mike Grell like backup, maybe, where they first started talking about that, right?
Yeah, it was before this.
Okay.
It had to have been, but not probably too much before this, because I think Grell is probably still drawing the Legion comic, isn't he?
I think so. He definitely drew that.
That 208, right?
Yeah. So this is a pretty fun page. I like the Ditko did this a lot with Spider-Man. I'm sure he wasn't the first guy to do it, but he'd have Spider-Man, like multiple images of Spider-Man in different poses as he's flipping and bouncing off buildings, you know.
Right.
I don't quite understand how he's doing what he is doing, like how contorting his body is somehow allowing him to move towards the side of the building and how that even saves him.
It's pretty unbelievable how how this is supposed to use, how it's supposed to work. Judo techniques of falling.
I'm guessing he's pressing against the side of the building and then launching himself back upward in the next panel, and that's how he's escaping the fall, but it isn't telegraphed very clearly, and it still doesn't explain how he was able to get closer to the building to do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I do. I'm thinking it over, like how the fuck this is supposed to work.
Right.
The caption says judo techniques of falling. That kind of stuff is so that when you fall, you don't hurt yourself, right?
Right,
like you
right.
move, and you know that if you land on this part of your body, it's not going to kill you.
Right.
Yeah. But I guess is like super future judo, something where you can contort your body and defy momentum and gravity somehow.
Right. He always has, you can always throw in like, what was it? Did he have like Venetian judo or something? Venusian. I've done this before.
Yeah, we did that last time. It was funny.
Maybe the Italians settle Venus in the future.
Could be. But yeah, it's evidently some very special kind of judo. And they make a point of saying that the contortions of his body sends his twisting toes slamming into the wall. I guess because his toes hit the wall and then spring him back up into but it's hard on his toenails.
I don't think I can, just because I don't think I completed my thought, and if I did, you can just cut it. Having like alien kung fu's that he has in the future, like get out of jail free cards for like having him pull off impossible feats with only karate, because he has like some future and alien karates that he knows that can somehow pull off miraculous things.
Yeah, I don't know how he had the time. Like they say he knows all the martial arts. Okay, so maybe you know all the earth martial arts. Even that seems like it would be impossible to figure out all those.
Right.
But he knows all of them. The Black Dragon dude or sensei or whoever told him all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because he had the help of these fucking education machines. That he
yes, exactly.
I don't know.
I was about
He's
to
kind
say
of biting
that
the hand
myself.
that feeds him or something.
Right.
But yeah, he knows them all. He knows.
He just
Venus
downloaded all
Judo.
those tapes.
Yeah, Venus Judo, Saturn Karate, Muay Thai from some other galaxy, whatever.
Yeah. I have no idea how many have existed on Earth, but there's probably more than you could learn in a lifetime.
Well, all you got to do is watch one of those Kung Fu tournament movies, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And there's like 20 guys, and they each have a different style, you know, and there's ninjas, and there's the guy from India who can stretch his arms real long and all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
You know?
There's a guy who can stretch his arms real long?
There's this crazy, which one is it? Master of the Flying Guillotine, maybe?
Okay.
The main character is this guy, Jimmy Wang Yu, who is kind of a big action star, Hong Kong and mainland China too. Mm-hmm. But it's a tournament movie. And there's the guy with the flying guillotine in the tournament, I think. But then there's the guy he's like a Chinese guy, but he's in brown face playing an Indian. And I guess like it's like some kind of, it's derived from like yoga or something, you know, where you're all stretched out. And he'll try and catch you, but he turns into like fucking Mr. Fantastic, and his arms get real long, you know, like 15 feet long to go after you and karate chop you and stuff.
15 feet.
Yeah, like real long. It looks
like they're using
ridiculous and insane.
Special effects to do this, or like a long rubber arm.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And yeah, there's a bunch of like cartoon level fighters in that movie.
Which movie is this? Now I want to watch it.
I think it's Master of the Flying Guillotine.
Okay.
but I don't know. It's been a while since I saw it. I think it was like, if I remember the DVD extras correctly, it like was one of the first kung fu tournament type of movies. Like
Right.
usually it's one guy against some warlords or something like that.
Is this like an Asian made film dubbed over here?
Yeah, it's a Hong Kong movie from
Okay.
the early 70s. Let's get through this. I have to go to the bathroom.
Oh, okay. We're almost done.
Yeah, almost to the end. So Karate Kid jumps back into Nemesis Kid's place. I don't know how he beats him up. He kicks him in the face.
I actually
again.
love the way Nemesis Kid looks in the bottom, the very last panel, page 17. It's kind of cheesy.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of a Estrada face. Like it has, like he's put some dark details on it in the inking. But Estrada does those kind of like crazy grimaces and stuff. It's really cartoony. And actually, the Karate Kid pose, like the high kick, like that's kind of what they look like, Like he really captures that.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to do that kind of stuff and get it looking spontaneous and correct anatomically, or correct enough anatomically to sell it, and get him in that crazy kick pose that most people never really see it in real life.
Right.
You never do it yourself. It's impossible,
Right.
But like these fighters guys can actually
Fazat.
To
remember
that's like kind of like Snoop Dogg type of language.
Like he says Fazat, and he's transformed. He's got like the dope smoking power of Cheech and whatever.
Well, yeah, that too. But I meant like, I've eaten too much Halloween candy. I'm real Fazat.
Fazat. Yeah, right.
How does he beat up Nemesis Kid?
Kicks him in the chin.
He's not Steel anymore. He says, "I'll finish you if I have to destroy my own headquarters to do it, with the nuclear power to shatter your atoms." So he's pulled up some nuclear powers to try and take out Karate Kid.
Lame.
Karate Kid dodges it because he's so fast.
Saying he isn't fast and agile enough to protect himself from Karate Kid, despite all of his power.
Yeah, it lacks the speed and mobility. This nuclear ray, it's just too slow.
Right, because he's just shooting beams out of his hand. I guess the smart thing would be just to emanate radioactivity, probably.
Yeah.
So Karate Kid would melt or whatever if he came near him.
Huh. Yeah, all right. He should have gone with the Steel body again. Because if he was Steel, could he have crushed Karate Kid? Like, you could hug him and crush him? I guess he'd have to have super strength. Maybe he's just a steel body. Well, would be enough to crush him to death.
Well, the way they're writing it here, which I disagree with, I mean, it seems like you can just randomly call up any power that Karate Kid doesn't have. So he could have picked super strength, I guess.
I know, it's dumb.
A little boring. He should have called up speed. That would have been the smart one.
Yeah, or he should have called up, superior karate.
Right.
Or, machine gun. Or, like you said, like a nuclear radioactive explosion or something. Epilogue. I don't know. Karate Kid is acting very irresponsibly here.
He puts him in the time bubble. He doesn't bother tying him up. He seems pretty confident that he'll stay unconscious long enough. He's not going to wake up on the mid-time stream and steer somewhere else.
Oh, yeah. See, I thought maybe he was dead.
He thought he killed him and he's sending the body back with a note on it.
Yeah.
I'm not coming back. You come here, this is what you're going to be like.
Karate Kid says, "You will sleep all the way to the future." So he didn't kill him. But this is the part where Karate Kid starts getting, I don't know what, like getting real 70s kind of, what is this kind of disposition that you have in the 70s when you want to find yourself and when you're having like a midlife crisis, but you're 20. Mm. What is that?
Like that thing like John Travolta always has in all his movies. I don't know.
Yeah. Karate Kid's is like, this is the first time I felt whole in years.
I'm going to let my hair down. I'm going to get some bell bottoms, grow some sideburns.
The button down 30th century is just, it's not working for him, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe he was supposed to be like, I'm leaving my girlfriend, I'm leaving everything behind. Like all the dads of the 70s did.
What's happened here, of course, is he knocked Princess Projector out.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck it, I'm going back, or she'll never get me.
That would explain why he's so upset and so uptight about
I'm not going back. I'm not going back.
That explains a lot. I hadn't really thought of that. That's a totally 70s thing. He's
Right.
like, I'd rather go to fucking Vietnam and stick
Right.
around
Right.
raising a kid. He says, maybe this is where I belong.
Maybe in 1,000 years, I'll be ready to take my responsibility.
Yeah. But the note says, I'm staying in the 20th century till I find myself. Don't call me, I'll call you. I think he could really fit in with that shitty attitude.
Yeah. I also think it's funny that he's such a badass and he's so intense, but he writes like a grade school kid in nice girly print.
Uh-huh.
Dear
It looks pretty
Monel.
It looks pretty professional to me. But I'm looking at this drawing of Karate Kid in the little next issue box. And it reminds me, and I think eventually Jack Abel is maybe inking this comic over Rick Estrada, or maybe in some of the issues. And we've seen Jack Abel and Rick Estrada do. I think he did that a couple of Legion issues, that team. And it's not as good as, maybe not as good as Staton and Estrada, but it's a definitely different look. Abel is a totally different looking inker than Staton is at this time.
So Juan Ortiz?
Yeah, for like the last 3 or 4 issues.
Yeah, I prefer Estrada's, but some of this looks kind of cool in its own way. All right, so
did you want to talk about this? Did you want to talk about this?
I'd love to.
Editorial thing.
I would love to. Let's do it.
Oh, really?
Do you not want to?
It seemed really slight. I just didn't really remember
Oh.
it. The whole comic was, I guess. So what's it called? The story behind the story.
Why do you think Karate Kid failed? Why do you think it didn't catch on? Do you think it was a poor choice for a character to have a solo? If you were going to expand the Legion franchise, do you think they picked the wrong guy?
You know what? I don't know. Like, if you read the comic, it's just kind of average,
right?
Which might be part of it. And he's kind of an unknown quantity, I suppose,
right.
to the comics buyer, which might be part of it. But I mean, there's number ones with brand new characters all the time that succeed. So
right,
it could just be that he's boring or something. First issue was kind of boring. Like, if I wasn't a fan of Legion of Superiors, I may not have stuck around and tried to look for the subsequent ones. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have no way of knowing what would make something fail or not back in the 70s. I don't know.
Well, I think I said this last time we covered it, but I think it hurt. I understand the rationale George Orlando had. Well, I think that's who it was, Joe Orlando, of putting it in the present. But if you plug him into the present, he becomes one of like a dozen other karate guys that were being published at that time because it was very popular genre, right? So kind of what makes him unique is that he is in the future. So it's maybe more interesting seeing a guy dressed up like Bruce Lee drop kicking astronauts than, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of see both sides of that too, though. Like, if your idea is that, oh, we're gonna do a martial arts guy like Marvel's doing, it has to be kind of like those are. A martial arts guy in the future, he doesn't get to go to whatever old Hong Kong and fight thugs in the streets, or there's no shadowy secret organizations ruled by some old guy. I mean, you can do that, but like like thematically and stereotypically, when it's not the same if you transport it to the future. You know what I mean? And it may be unrecognizable to the reader.
Well, like you were talking about the kung fu guys with the stretchy arms, there is a certain, some of that has science fiction-y or mystical elements to it. You could have him fighting a bunch of karate thugs who are also aliens. Or he's just in a Westworld-like place with robots that look like they're from the past. Well, he also has a time bubble, so he could be in different eras.
Yeah, he should have gone back to ancient or whatever, the 1700s or something.
Do you think there would be a better candidate for a solo series out of the Legion?
No, yeah. I feel like he's as good as any. Maybe, I don't know. It's like what kind of character can carry their own series best? And I guess, it all depends on the writing, right? But like Chameleon Boy maybe would be a good character. Like, he looks so different,
right?
But also his powers are like, they're cool, but they're also nothing special. Maybe, like, I guess it could be seen that way. Like, if you decide to put him in 1970s New York City,
right?
I
Then
don't
he
know.
sort
I
of
don't know what
turns
that'd be
into
like.
Martian Manhunter a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah. If I got to pick which one they'd greenlight, I think I'd still go with Karate Kid just because he has no powers. To me, that makes him more versatile.
Yeah.
Like you can drop him into more situations. He's more everymanish. But most of them are sort of designed. I mean, they were written to be part of a team, and maybe they don't stand out as well on their own. They don't function as well if they're not playing off other characters.
Timberwolf might be a good, and he eventually got
Right.
his own thing.
Right.
It was the same, sort of the same premise. He goes back in time.
Right. It's always that premise, it seems to be.
Timberwolf would be good because he's also sort of a lone wolf type of character, right?
Who's the other one? Cosmic Boy, of course, had a limited series. Even that was in the past.
Yeah.
That Inferno character had a series, but I think maybe it was a limited series.
Yeah, it was a 4 issues. Pretty sure it was in the past. I think she got stranded in the 20th century during the Final Night crossover event.
Oh, she wasn't from the past?
No, I think she was from the future and got left in the past. And I think Pharaoh Lad was from the past and went to the future.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
In that iteration.
Yeah.
But they both were. It was both in that Final Night thing where they kind of happened.
He was a fun character. I don't know that he could carry a series, but I seem to remember liking him the way they did him. Like he seemed a lot more human and sympathetic. I think they like focused in on his eyes a lot. They'd show his eyes in a way they didn't back in the Silver Age.
Oh, okay.
He looked a lot more vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really think of any of them as like a series lead, you know?
Yeah. Monel, I guess, but maybe he's the most successful of all of them, right? Because
his series went 20 issues or something.
Yep, a lot longer than everyone
Karate Kid
else's.
went 15, right? Yeah, I don't know. I think probably Karate Kid and Timberwolf were probably the best candidates for solo Legionnaires with the series.
Yeah. Well, Valor was a good one, but it had a unique set of circumstances to make it interesting. Like he had a place in the 20th century. There was a lot that we knew that he was destined to have done, could be written within the story. And he's traveling, exploring space, so you can put him up against almost anything.
Yeah, and you can do whatever Star Trek type of issues. I don't know if they did. I don't think they did, but you could have with a new new different alien guys every issue.
But in a way, he's more of a Legion 89 spinoff than a Legion of Superheroes spinoff.
They did tie it in kind of closely eventually.
Right, towards the end. Is that CC Beck on the right, or is it somebody else?
That looks like Kurt Swan to
really?
Me. Like this?
It's too small for me to see the details.
To me, it really looks like a swan drawing.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. But like these little kids, they look
weird.
I know. Like the black kids look like Neil Adams black people almost.
Yeah, kind of strange. Like dramatically, their eyes are shadowed. And yeah, I guess it's just the Batson that looks like Beck. Weird.
Yeah, I think it's Swan and Coletta.
Somebody ought to make a book of that stuff.
I know, and I bet somebody online has.
Yeah, there's probably too many rights issues.
Well, would you buy a book of those? Like, they're not fun to read. Like you read 3 of them, and it's like, yeah, okay.
Price is right, and if it had like maybe on the left of each one, it had some information on who did it,
the ingredients,
right. Anyway.
All right. The story behind the story. This is going to tell us all about the inspiration for the Karate Kid series.
Today in Super Talk.
But this is an article about the artistic inspiration that brought the Karate Kid comic book to life.
It's saying he starts out by talking about a 13-year-old Jim Shooter. Was he that young? Is this apocryphal?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Every story says that about Shooter. Like he started writing when he was 13.
I thought he did it at the ripe old age of 14.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it says it appeared in print shortly after his birthday, after his 13th birthday. So he wrote it when he was 12? That cannot be right. I don't know.
I bet he is not the youngest writer in comics, but
You don't think so? In professional, like DC Marvel comics?
Above board, yeah, but
Oh, I see.
I don't
You
know.
think Arnold Drake let his 10-year-old daughter write some Doom Patrols or something?
Yeah, I guess what I was thinking would probably apply more to artists in non-American comics. Like I could picture some kind of sweatshop scenario.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe in America during like the golden age,
Right,
having
right.
some kids
In the
sitting
busy
at
Arnold
desks
shop.
in some hot warehouse
But
churning out comics.
you're talking about artists. What about writers? Maybe back in the days before they had the separation of disciplines like that, like where it's
Yeah.
just a person just starts writing and drawing a comic book.
Right. And for all we know, there may have been some talented young kid making comics, and their scrupulous Stan Lee-ish father was taking credit for them. I'm gonna look into this because I wouldn't be surprised if there's been like some Japanese young genius kid, churning mangas out on his own.
I bet Jim Shooter would argue, he'd dispute you up and down, like, no,
For sure.
I am the youngest comic book writer in history. Yeah, it just goes through the history of...
Points out how young Jim Shooter came up with the 4 new characters, Karate Kid, Nemesis Kid, Pharaoh Lad, and Princess Projectra. He talks about how he himself was inspired to become a writer when he found out that this young kid wrote these comics that he read as a kid.
Yeah, this is written by Paul Levitz.
Right.
He says that when Jim broke in, this is actually an interesting detail to me. He says there is almost no under 30 comic book writers, which does make it seem a lot weirder that a 13, 14-year-old kid is writing the comics when all the other writers are like in their their mid-30s.
Right.
Like they're these old guys, like, I don't know, like a 37-year-old guy. Some old, wizened,
let's see,
hacked out a million comics.
That was like 65, so maybe that's true. I know it's certainly true of DC, but I know Marvel, at least by the end of the 60s, was full of younger guys. Took a while for DC to catch up there.
I guess Stan Lee, who created every Marvel character, was a little bit younger than all the other people, right? He was younger than Kirby.
Yeah, he was. He was probably at least 15 years younger, I would think.
Right. When he was instructing Kirby on how to draw comics the Marvel way and the right way to do things, he was like 15 years younger than Kirby. A real visionary, real genius, Stan Lee. More of a genius, probably.
The king of comics.
Yeah. Creator of so many characters we love. Batman, Green Lantern, the Fantastic Four, Black Panther, White Panther, the Horse.
The Horse, I forgot about that guy.
All the greats, High and Lois.
Right. Have you ever noticed that he has that comic strip that looks like it's ripped off of High and Lois, the Willie Loman comics?
Oh, about the Postman? What's it? Willie Lumpkin?
Yeah, Loman is
Death of a Salesman. Based on Willie Loman.
Is that Death of a Salesman?
Yeah. The last strip of Willie Lumpkin, he commits suicide.
Right.
But he still can't hold a candle to the genius of Jim Shooter, world's youngest comic book writer. Stan Lee. He's a hack compared to Jim Shooter, creating all your favorite comic book characters like Karate Kid and Princess Projectra and Nemesis.
And Pharaoh Lad.
Fatal Five. I think he actually did create the Fatal Five, and they sort of stuck around into the zeitgeist.
Well, a shit ton of Jim Shooter stuff stuck around. Within the Legion world, they didn't have a whole lot of reoccurring villains before he came along. Now, some of those guys have come back since, but maybe he didn't come up with the Time Trapper. But he came up with the Fatal Five. He came up with the Dominators. He did.
Okay.
I swear.
All right. But that was in the 70s, yeah. I had to think about it because it was in the same 70s when a bunch of people were writing it, right?
No.
They're earlier?
Up in the Silver Age, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, buddy.
I haven't read all the Silver Age stuff. You get on my case all the time because I haven't read them all.
I had this long, impressive list of all the lasting things Jim Shooter contributed to the Legion. And
Adam Orion.
Forgot it all. Oh, can't forget that guy.
The Westerner.
There's a Superman villain like that. Who's always riding Superman like a bucking bronco.
That's Terraman, right?
Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I was mixing him up with Earthman.
Oh, yeah. I got a bunch of the loose leaf who's the other day, and there's an entry for Terror Man, but he looks totally different. Like he has a short haircut. He's like got gray hair, and he's got all gray, like real Dan Jurgens boring ass fucking thing, you know. But he's like this rebooted Terror Man with none of the no bell bottom cowboy pants and chaps, and no cowboy hat, no beard. I'm like, what the fuck? This guy's not gonna ride Superman like a horse. Give me a break.
Tried to make him legit, make him serious or something.
I guess, yeah, the grim and gritty 90s Terror Man.
I think he created the Wanderers, the original Wanderers.
Okay.
I'm sure he came up with something else.
You're not selling me too much on Jim Shooter.
Oh, a little guy named Mordrew.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, they use him a lot still, huh? He's still around.
Yes.
They've changed him, though. They youngified him and got rid of his hat. But a shadow of the brilliance that Jim Shooter created. So he's created almost as much Legion shit as Jerry Siegel did, huh?
He created the controllers.
You got to do better than this. Come on.
Don Allen, the Tornado Twins, the Atomic Axe, Eltro Gand.
Eltro Gand? Come on.
He doesn't count?
Well, he was nothing. He was in one story.
What about Fruit Boy from Earth Prime?
Fruit Boy. Yeah, Fruit Boy. He was a huge hero in the Crisis.
This must be a later edition from the 3-boot, maybe.
Fruit Boy. I want to get back to talking about Karate Kid. I don't care about Jim Shooter's.
You want to talk about this forever?
Stupid achievements.
Jim Shooter was a hack. He didn't come up with anything. You're right.
Paul says that Murray Boltinoff brought the Legion back to sales success after Weisinger let them slide in the years before his retirement.
Was he already dead at this point where he felt bold enough to say that?
I don't know. I don't know when he died. But yeah, like Weisinger let him slide? I guess he demoted them to Action Comics.
Yeah, it's funny because when I think of the latter end of his reign, those are some of the better issues.
Me too.
Maybe
I love
it's
him.
because he's not paying as much attention to it, micromanaging it.
Yeah, like is he letting him slide just because he's just passing the buck and having Nelson Bridwell do all the heavy lifting? And
yeah. It has to be the Action Comics run that he's talking about, right? Because he was there to like 70 or 71.
Well, yeah, when they pick up again in Superboy, when the Legion shows up again in Superboy, that's Boltinoff. And I think maybe the tail end of Action is Boltinoff too, I guess. But the decision to move the Legion out of Adventure and into Action, yeah, that was during Weisinger, I think.
Right.
But those Action issues are good as hell. Even the Superman or the fucking Super Sons stuff, those are funny comics. Those are good.
Yeah.
I would say they rival Bizarro for Sons.
But what?
Yeah, maybe not. They're the ones I've read are pretty fun to read.
The Super Sons.
Yeah.
They're fun.
And the Legion ones from Action are great. We love them.
Timberwolf getting addicted to fruit.
Yep. There's a fruit pusher. Was that Fruit Boy? Is that who Fruit Boy was? Paul says Boltinoff loaned the character of Karate Kid to our office, Levitz's office. So I guess Levitz is in a different editorial office. I don't know who he controls. Who is he working with in his office? Boltinoff's doing Superboy and the Legion and maybe Superman. Is he doing Superman too? Or Superman Family or some stupid stuff like that?
Probably.
And then Levitz is...
He's probably in charge of all the shit that got canceled during the, what did they call it? The retraction? Implosion.
Yeah, I wish he went into more detail about what his office is versus what Murray Boltinoff's office is. He doesn't really say.
It's like a mop closet. So it looks like around this time he's doing Amazing World's DC Comics. He's editing that along with, he's not the only editor on that, but...
Oh yeah, that's the Junior Woodchucks taking control of the Amazing World of DC Comics.
Swamp Thing, Weird Western Tales, Adventure Comics, which I'm not exactly sure. Is it still like Supergirl at that point?
I bet it's the new Adventure Comics, which was like a anthology of like different kind of fantasy type of stuff. Or like, yeah, maybe it was when Spectre was in it and Aquaman were in it. So it sounds like Levitz is doing these kind of genre titles that aren't superhero or Western. Yeah.
Weird Mystery Tales, Tales of Ghost Castle. This is all like around 75. Yeah, lots of things that probably never saw in issue 10.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of shit that got crushed in the implosion.
A lot of like horror stuff here, you know.
They were doing a ton of that junk. They're jobbing it all out to those Filipino guys too, I think.
Yeah, because they saw that Marvel was doing that 2 or 3 years previous. Like, we got to get in on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird fit though. Well, he's doing Commandy as well, which makes sense because they end up kind of crossing over towards the end, don't they?
But he credits Carl Gafford, the colorist, the color man, Carl Gafford, with the idea to spin Karate Kid off into his own magazine. Infantino says we should put it in the 20th century. So that's who we have to blame for the 20th century location of this comic book.
I think I blamed Joe Orlando. My bad.
Yeah, they should have put it in the Old West, like the Kung Fu show. The thing the back issue article I read about Karate Kid said the Karate Kid comic #1 debuted like 3 weeks after the final episode of the Kung Fu TV show.
Whoa, that show ended that early?
Yeah, as a way to emphasize the fact that the Kung Fu madness of the 70s was dead when Karate Kid #1 came out. They said that, Kung Fu TV show was canceled. And I think even that was kind of a late addition to like watching Bruce Lee movies and like.
And in typical DC style, they're like, hey, we need to get in on this.
Yeah. Infantino's like, hey, have you heard about Kung Fu movies?
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
But they went ahead with it. They thought it was a good idea. Rick Estrada had been working on Richard Dragon. I think Estrada did a couple of good solo art jobs on Richard Dragon Kung Fu Fighter too.
I know. I want to look those up.
He says the long, hard work of putting together this comic began, and as of this writing, it hasn't ended yet.
Meaning he has yet to be fired.
I thought it meant he hasn't yet come up with like a cohesive idea for the whole comic series.
Mm.
Like it's a kind of a half-baked comic as of the conclusion of the first issue. They want to follow Karate Kid as he finds himself in the 70s.
Disco becomes the Tony Manero of the 31st century.
Yeah, he'll become Tony Manero, but then he'll take that knowledge and he'll dance the fuck out of Princess Pacheco.
He's going to return to the future, the open shirt, medallions, big sideburns, bell bottoms.
He'll be like, what are you looking at? Hey. Up your nose with the rubber hose.
The rubber hose. Right. I know that character much better than Tony Manero.
Rick Estrada drew the Welcome Back Kotter comic.
Did he do the whole thing or just?
He did. I think it started out as Estrada inked by Oxner, and then it flipped where it was Oxner inked by Estrada. That doesn't sound right either, but it was something like that.
It seems like something Oxner would do. It seemed like he's the go-to guy for a lot of those sitcom comics.
Yeah. That's about all there is to this, right?
But we get to see the pencils and the inks, right?
Yeah, really clear picture of the pencil page and the final Joe Staton inked page. Paul says it's an unusual system of layout and finishes as opposed to regular penciling and inking that these guys are doing. To me, it kind of looks like the way I always imagine penciling and inking, but evidently this is a layout and it's perhaps less fleshed out.
It looks a lot to my eye, and the copy I looked at, it looks very bare bones. Maybe I'm not seeing everything that you can see on the newsprint.
It's not very clear in the newsprint. To me, it looks like everything's
He's doing a lot of the important work for sure, like the undergirding of the drawing, the perspective, the placement of the figures, how the figures are put together. But it doesn't look, I'm used to seeing guys like go over that with like pencil shading, even like kind of rendering everything.
Yeah. So I don't know. I wish the whole book looked like the Estrada layouts kind of. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what the purpose of showing this was. Like, yeah, this is exactly how all comic book artwork is made, I guess.
More of it was, I really think there must be more to the pencils than we're seeing here. It's like bitmapped out or something. I mean, they're printing it tiny on newsprint.
I thought the purpose of showing this was to show that Estrada did maybe less penciling than a typical comic pencil. But to me, this looks like it's a complete pencil.
I didn't get that impression from what I read, but if anything, I think they're trying to say this is how good this Joe Staton guy is.
Yeah, they say it's an unusual system of layout and finishes.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't look too unusual to me.
Right. Yeah. Isn't Staton does he ink the whole thing, or does somebody else replace him when it gets kind of good? Like 6 or 7 issues in, doesn't he kind of like find a good style? Estrada does. Starts getting sharper than it is here.
No, I think like we did that one issue that was all Estrada doing the inks, but I think all the rest of them was Estrada being inked by somebody else. Yeah, and probably Staton. Eventually, yeah, towards the end, people altogether. There's no Estrada, there's no Staton take over the title. Like right. I read this thing in Back Issue magazine that just talked about the whole. Well, it talked about Karate Kid, but it covered the whole series. It covered sort of his original appearance in Legion, and then his life after, up until he gets killed, kind of.
Well, like I just jumped to issue 8, and it's Estrada and Staton, and maybe. It just looks a lot more polished than the first issue.
Could be that Staton was getting better. I don't know.
Yeah, but it also looks like maybe Estrada loosened up some because it's much cartoonier. There's like bits of cartooniness in this one, issue 1, but this issue, like everybody looks like a Eisner-y caricature.
Yeah,
big noses, huge eyes. You know.
Yeah, it could be that maybe Staton just kind of like Staton's kind of cartoony anyway. Maybe he was just. Tensing up or something in the first little bit.
Could be. I mean, do you think that cartooniness is coming more from Staton than Estrada? Or because I know Estrada did like lots of like war and romance comics, but he seemed to have a lot of range.
Yeah, he's a cartoony penciler.
Right.
I don't know. I wonder if maybe like Staton was trying to do a serious comic.
Yeah.
Over the layouts, and I don't know. Eventually, his instincts took over, and
right.
Estrada is also cartoony. Like I think he's extremely cartoony, even in a war comic.
Yeah, and the Kurtzman.
Yeah, Estrada's great, but he's always underserved by his inkers. Staton's one of the better ones on him. But that's it. Send your letters into Karate Comments. This isn't really a letters page, I guess. A lot of first issues don't have a letters page. They put the comic. They use the letters page space for the comic. In this one, they didn't have enough pages.
Unless sometimes they send out like advance copies.
I guess so.
I've seen that before. But usually it's like this, where they explain why they made the comic.
I'm too tired to argue with you.
Fuck you.
All right. Karate Kid #1. What a great comic book.
We only have like 11 more of these to do.
Oh my God.
We need to do a comeback series. I think it would be a good comic. I could write a good Karate Kid comic.
At least as good as this one.
I mean, I wouldn't really be good at the writing or the drawing part, but if I could just come up with the vague idea and have other people hammer all that other stuff out, it would be good.
And you could still be credited as the creator since you had the idea.
I'm the breakdown artist.
You'd probably have a breakdown if you were the artist.
Yeah. See, I'd make him like Kane in Kung Fu, only he's traveling in the time bubble. He's lost. He's trying to get back to the 30th century.
Oh.
And he just ends up in different. Is that what Legion Lost is, or are they in what? They're in one time, right?
Yeah.
See, I'd have him like show up in the Old West and have to do some Kung Fu shit to like save some family's farm, and then he'd like go to the gangster days, do some Kung Fu shit on Al Capone in a pinstripe suit.
Yeah. Oh, and he could go to the Cavern Club in the 60s, and he has to keep the Beatles from breaking up before they become stars.
Right.
I can't think of any other ideas better than that.
Yeah. Nemesis Kid. He's chasing Nemesis Kid, and Nemesis Kid also has a time bubble. And in different times, he shows up, and he's become like the king of France or something, and he's got to like fix time.
What if Nemesis Kid frames Karate Kid for murder, and he's on the run from a science police officer?
God, the science police with time bubbles, that would really suck.
Right. And every time the science police officer gets close, within a hair's breadth of catching Karate Kid's like, it wasn't me. It's this guy named Nemesis Kid.
Right. And the science police officer starts becoming a little sympathetic to him, and it almost seems like they could be friends.
Right. There you go. That's going to be Karate Kid 2024 when it comes out.
The one-armed man would have to be Lightning
Oh, fuck.
Lad. Lightning Lad did it.
Yeah, I hope Karate Kid has a long career in this comic series in the 20th century.
Long live the Legion.
Bye-bye. See you in 30 days. I think, well, partly you just get mixed up in, you get balls deep in the lore and stuff, in the plots.
Balls deep into Star Trek lore.
Yeah. Like the way that we're into the long form story arc of
balls deep into the Legion. That should be
balls deep.
That should be our slogan.
No. No.
Today we get balls deep into the 70s Karate Kid series.
We're going balls deep.